Happy New Year! Yes, last night, April 7th, sundown in Jerusalem, that is when the first sliver of the new moon was sighted, and the barley is now Aviv in the land of Israel. This is the first day of the month of the Aviv. This is the first month of the biblical year. Even before we left Egypt, before the Passover, we were instructed by the Almighty to guard the month of the Aviv. Even before the instruction concerning guarding the Sabbath came, while we were on our way to Mount Sinai, we were still in Egypt when the biblical calendar was set. We are to guard the month of the Aviv. We are to keep Passover in the month of the Aviv, because in the month of the Aviv barley is when we came out of Egypt. And this is the remembrance forever. And so we do the first fruit of the barley harvest during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and so that's why the barley has to be Aviv, for it to be the month of the Aviv, which was later named the month of Nisan after the Babylonian captivity. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why we celebrate Passover in our ministry when we do. We choose the earliest possible date that the barley will be Aviv in the land of Israel. That is how we guard it. We have to set the hotel room for hundreds of people more than a year in advance, and so we do it at the earliest possible date. So this year, hundreds of people got together. We had a great Passover celebration, but it was a month early. And so now we are celebrating the Passover with our friends, our families, our communities in the correct time, because we are guarding the month of the Aviv, and this is a month that will keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Because last month, even though we had our Passover celebration, we did not begin to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread during this period of time. So Nehemiah Gordon was our keynote speaker this year, and he brought incredible things to the table that I hope that you are all going to feast on. But one of the things he did was to clarify the month of the Aviv and why there's a 13th month in the scripture. Even though we don't read about it in our King James Version of the Bible, even though there are people in the land of Israel who do not know barley from wheat, these kind of things are what we've been contending with for more than 20 years, to be able to bring to you the truth of the scriptures so that we can keep the scriptures and guard the month of the Aviv. So now I'm going to let Nehemiah Gordon tell you the rest of the story, as he did at Shabbat Night Live during our Passover celebration. We have an expert in the calendar, the biblical calendar,
yes,
and this is Nehemiah Gordon. Come on.
Nehemiah, welcome.
So the rabbis have been having their rabbinic court every month. They've been listening to the testimonies of Jews in the land of Israel who sighted the new moon. And I was introduced to you really through the Israeli New Moon Society 20 years ago, because you were the man that has established the month of the Aviv with your team. You've been doing that for a number of years. And so to have you here to tell us a little bit about the 13th month, because some people say, it's not in the King James Version of the Bible, so we're not going to do it. And we go a little deeper than the surface of the King James Version of the Bible. So
I did this for over 20 years. I haven't been doing it for a couple of years, but there's still people, trustworthy people out there who are going through the fields. And this year they went out looking for Aviv barley, and they did not find quantities necessary of Aviv barley to begin the 13th month. To begin the first month. So now have a 13th month and another month and wait another month. Now people say, well, okay, where is that in the Bible? Where is it specifically commanded? We have this system that is described in 1 Kings chapter 4. It's the tax system that Solomon set up. And he broke up the country of Israel into 12 different districts. And it was a great system back then, because you only paid taxes to the king 1 month out of the year.
Oh.
And in other words, if it was the first month, you were in a certain district, a second month, that district paid. And at the end of the system of the 12 districts, it describes, it says, "Unitziv echad asher ba'aretz," and there was one tax officer over the land. And the ancient Jews explained that what this refers to is that this tax officer, he would collect taxes from the entire land in the 13th month. So it's clearly reflected in the original Hebrew in the system of Solomon's tax system. Now, when you translate it to most English translations, they completely miss it. They misunderstand what that's describing. They actually think it's talking about the 12th tax officer, that it's just reiterating and referencing him again, but it's talking about the 13th month.
That's right. Now, there is also another thing that has to be considered because of the 13th month, and that is the hired worker. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so there's two prophecies in Isaiah where he predicts things that are going to happen, and he says they're going to happen either 1 year or the other prophecy is 3 years, and he says according to the years of the hired worker.
What does that mean?
Now, what is the year of a hired worker? So in ancient Israel, you would hire somebody, and you would say, hey, I'm going to pay you to work for me for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, and it kind of wasn't fair because he didn't know in advance if he's going to be working 12 months or 13 months.
Sometimes he could do 2 years in a,
well,
during 3 years.
If it's a 3-year period, he may end up working, instead of 36 months, 38 months. That's a big difference. So they had this institution called the year of the hired worker, which was a set amount of time of 12 months that you would work in these contracts. And so when Isaiah has these prophecies, he doesn't want people to come to him afterwards and say, wait a minute, this happened after 37 months, not 36 months. And so he specifically states in two prophecies that such and such will happen in this number of years according to the year of the hired worker. That's how they reckon time.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Now, why we go with the people that we do in the land of Israel and rely on them, because as the rabbinic court that hears the testimony of new moon witnesses, they log in the Aviv, they are doing this, and what their goal is and their plan is that they are going to present this book of calculations and sightings to the Messiah when he comes. And so they don't have an agenda. They're just wanting to say that when the Messiah comes, we're going to go back to the original calendar as it was before the Sanhedrin changed it in 359, right?
Well,
there's always more.
Okay.
There's always more.
Well, I mean, so one, I really respect what the rabbinical Jews are doing, specifically when it comes to the sighting of the new moon. However, they're not actually observing those months.
Right.
So if a given month is off or not doesn't really matter for them because it's just a statistical anomaly, right? Whereas if I'm actually trying to observe the feast, I need to know. We've had this situation in the past where people claim they sighted the new moon, and upon closer examination, we found out that we didn't think they did. And that happens. Look, this is a problem that's described in ancient times. They talk about, the rabbis talk about how people would come and they would give false testimony because they wanted to manipulate the calendar.
And that's still going on today. Every year there are still people who are manipulating the calendar. And so we go with the people that we know they don't have an agenda, they're reliable, and they have been in the land of Israel for years. And so, Nehemiah, thanks. We've got a lot more tonight.